Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Uncomplication. I hope you've been doing well. I've taken some time off to really focus on the things that are most important to me. So it's been a little while since I did a real technical look into the crypto market, but I've been getting a lot of comments from people over the last weeks, and I think it's time that I do another little where I think we are, the things I'm paying attention to, and just as usual, trying to uncomplicate this experience of being a crypto enthusiast at a very dicey time. So let's take a look at some charts. Let's see what the market's doing, and let's see what we can figure out. So the first thing that I want to look at with you is surrounding Wyckoff. So obviously this channel exploded when the prediction that I made back in April about this being a Wyckoff distribution that we were in, that played out, and I think it really set off a fever of looking at the technical patterns of Wyckoff and applying it everywhere. I know that I've seen a real surge in people using those patterns as a predictive model on time frames of all sizes, and I want to just talk about that for a little bit. So I think when you look at Wyckoff, he was not just trying to put in front of us a template that was going to, give us the keys to every move that the market makes. I think that what Wyckoff really was putting in front of us was a way of thinking like the smart money and an understanding of how and why price moves. So I definitely, and we're going to look at, I've been mapping and following how the current price action is also forming a Wyckoff-ian pattern. But the question is this really predictive? Is this something that we can use to anticipate what's coming? Or do these cycles happen, these markups and markdowns, but at the end of the day, we don't actually know what the next move is, because that's really the lesson that Wyckoff was trying to teach us, was to not be caught off guard and to not have our emotions dictate our actions, and to understand how smart money builds causes for prices to go up or down. So when I am looking at the current Wyckoff patterns, the way that I've heard them described that I really like is that they are like snowflakes, that you can find these Wyckoff-ian patterns at all these different scales, but when you're in the midst of one, it's not necessarily a predictor. It is just a reminder that the motions and the actions are shaking people out, getting people to buy in. It's all part of this process that happens on large and small time frames. And so I'm really hesitant right now to look at any analysis of Wyckoff accumulation patterns and say, okay, this is an accumulation, we're definitely going back up. Because the only difference between an accumulation and a redistribution is, at the end, does the price break up or does the price break down? So I encourage people in this space to not get a false sense of security or mastery that we can anticipate the market just because we know about Wyckoff. Again, the real lesson is more about our own ability to move with the smart money, think like the smart money, and not get kind of artificially faked out. So if I come here to, this is the original chart where I had the original Wyckoff distribution marked out. I have been following along here and trying to do my best to see how these current price actions do match the schematic for a Wyckoff accumulation, where we had a very pronounced selling climax. We had a very clear automatic reaction. We've had these secondary tests. I think we've had 2 of them. This moment that we had on the 22nd, where we actually dropped below the $29,000 mark, this lines up pretty nicely with the schematic for being a possible spring. And so I kind of have here mapped out the rest of the accumulation phase, but until we get all the way over here and actually see a change in not just technicals, but also a change in sentiment, good news being piled in, and the overall feeling of the market going from the extreme fear that we are right now in the fear and greed index back into that extreme greed, technicals alone are never going to tell us that. So I know that myself and many others are kind of following along and seeing how this may or may not fit the schematic. But just keep that in mind. There's not a human on the planet right now that is going to be able to tell you with certainty what this is going to end up doing. So that's really my first bullet here. Is this a predictive model? I don't think it is. I think it's a useful schematic to understand how structurally markup and mark down works, but it's not something to build a high degree of confidence in. And even when I posted the Wyckoff distribution video, we were so far along in that cycle and the model was calling for more markdown. But even then, I didn't want to believe it. Prices were still going for altcoins. And so I don't think it's something that we can look at and then know with certainty this is what's going to happen. One of the other things I want to just talk about really quickly is people talk in terms of bull market and bear market. Are the bulls going to win? Are they going to outrun the bears? Is this a bear market? Is this a bull market? And I heard someone say that there is no bull market or bear market. There's only markup and mark down. The price is either being driven up so that those that have accumulated can distribute, or it's being marked down so that those that have just distributed can drive the price down and reaccumulate. So I don't think it's really healthy or a good frame of mind to just think in those polars of is this bull or is this bear. I think if we look at how a market works and how it kind of funnels money out of excited investors into the pockets of the ones that are kind of building the cause for these price movements, that's a better way to be looking at this market than just, is this a bull market? Yes, that means prices are going up. So I just wanted to say that because, this whole Wyckoffian thing, it's really useful. But again, the real takeaway is understanding that the emotions that you feel moment to moment while trading are really being driven by the outcomes that the smart money, the large holders of the stock or crypto are trying to affect on the general public. So with that being said, there's a lot to look at right now in the crypto space, but in my opinion right now, technical analysis is almost the least exciting because like I said, we don't have a real strong foundation for making predictions based on the technicals right now. If we come and we look honestly at the market and its moves, we can only see what we already know. We can understand this narrative that we all were expecting higher and higher prices, and then we had a sharp sell-off and this capitulation, and we've been moving sideways and breaking down. The volumes have remained pretty consistent throughout this whole period, but just the technicals alone are not enough to let us know whether we are going to have a break back to the upside. The only real interesting thing that I see from a technical perspective are these larger patterns and kind of predicting or understanding how after a several month distribution, we've come into this kind of shorter time frame of accumulation. Is that really enough to build a cause? We do have some levels that we can kind of be looking at where anytime that we have this kind of consolidation in these ranges, they provide support so that when we do drop and kind of put in a bottom, these are support levels that we can continue to look at. But this types of analysis, just be mindful that if you're in this market, technical analysis is really useful for short-term trading and looking at the swings and the momentum. But right now, I think it's more important to have an awareness of fundamental analysis. The fundamentals of the projects that you're supporting, Bitcoin being just one of many projects, are the fundamentals of Bitcoin still strong? Is it still a compelling case that it's going to be around in 4 years? And, that's kind of a more interesting space to dig into. I think I might even do a whole video at some point talking about fundamental analysis for normal people. But if you're investing in altcoins, if you're investing in projects, it's really important to look at it like an investment in a business and understand who is the team that's driving this project. What are they trying to do? What partners do they have in the space? How long have they been around? Have they survived a bear market before? Is this a technology that I could see myself using? Understanding that about the assets that you hold is even more important right now than looking at the technicals. Because if the fundamentals are strong, the technicals will, when the narrative changes, rise back up, and it will support that story of growth. But the fundamentals underneath are really what's most important right now as you're looking at your portfolio, the things that you're holding, and maybe the things that you bought into based on technicals that you thought it was going to 10x and didn't. Actually spending some time researching those projects and deciding, is this something that I want to hold on to? Because in markdown phases, altcoins can lose 80 to 90% of their value. So you really want to have your holdings in fundamentally strong assets. The other type of analysis is sentimental analysis, and this is easy. Sentiment is how we are feeling right now about the market. And sentiment is a huge driver of a markup phase. And that's what we all want to get back to. We want to call it a bull market, but do we have cause to mark up the price of these assets that are being held? And until that narrative changes, until there's a glowing amount of positive news and you find yourself just overwhelmingly compelled to buy Bitcoin again and buy these other assets, the sentimental analysis remains low in the market right now. And that alone overshadows, I think, the technicals. Until there's these big news pieces that really paint the picture like we had back in March about where this is all going, I don't see just this huge recovery where we're going to be back to everyone piling in, institutions openly admitting that they're piling back in. Actually, right now I see a lot more FUD and a lot more JP Morgan saying, oh, no investors are interested in buying Bitcoin right now, blah blah blah, and that I think is complete BS. I think that's part of this markdown cycle, is scaring away the general public so that the smart money can accumulate. And so just being mindful that there's more than just technicals right now, and that these are the things that can give you the confidence to pay less attention. Ultimately, that's where I was so invested in the day-to-day price action that once I took a step back, looked at the big picture, the fundamental analysis of the projects that I'm holding, and then that kind of lets you say, okay, you know what, I can take some time. I don't have to be worried. The fundamentals are strong, and the sentiment will match the story when it's time. The other things I wanted to mention, there's been a lot of talk in the last couple weeks about a few things. We had a death cross in Bitcoin. So we had the 50-day moving average cross below the 200-day moving average, which essentially means that the short-term moving average is now below the longer perspective moving average, which that is what happens when we have a big sell-off. That is what happens when we kind of change the direction of the market, and we already know that. There was a great piece that Benjamin Cohen did about the death cross. I think it's worth checking out. He talks about it a lot better than I'm going to right now. But just, it happened. We know it happened. We've seen when it happened in the past, and it all kind of plays into this understanding that there is a larger cycle happening. There is a need for more consolidation and accumulation in this market to really build a case to put in new all-time highs and sustain that sentiment that is going to or would catapult Bitcoin back up into a bull run like people talk about it. So this doesn't really concern me. I think again this is sort of the technicals just mirroring the actual reality that we're experiencing. And so, this could be viewed as FUD. This could be viewed as people are going to sell off because this scary thing happened. But, the short-term moving average moving below the long-term moving average, it fits this stage of the market where we are and is not really a predictor. If anything, it's something to just be aware of and neutral about. You can't change it. There's nothing you can really do with it other than, anchor into those fundamentals and wait for the sentiment to change. The other thing that was really interesting recently is this report came out that talks about, this is on Reddit, I can post the link here, but this report that came out where an independent body was making global recommendations to the governments around the world about regulation of cryptocurrency. And even looking at late summer this year to start enacting some of these proposals that really start to ratchet down control at a global level, like international governments starting to regulate the crypto space, like the other financial apparatus that has been in existence. And so, I suggest people go and read this, or at least read kind of the synopsis. It is not, in my view, a bad thing necessarily, but I think it's also one of these big pieces that has a place in this story that we're living, from this crazy markup phase to these price capitulations. And it's really a good time for governments to step in and say, hey, there's all this manipulation and, people that are getting hurt by this, and making a case for regulation. And I think what will happen is that there are going to be a lot of projects that go out of existence because of this, because there is going to be a reduction in the decentralization, but those projects that do fit the mold and can fit the regulatory template are only going to grow. So I just wanted to point this out, because in a steady state world, if everything just existed in this unregulated way that it has for the last 10 plus years, that's a different landscape than where we might be moving into sooner than we think. And as people in the crypto space, it is good to have an awareness that these changes could be coming, and they could affect the look and feel and the way that we engage with these projects. So I'll post this link. I'm not going to go too in depth. I read most of this, and I read a lot of people's interpretations, but I think it's overall a positive thing. I don't like centralization. I don't like government control, but this legitimizes it. It brings it more into the mainstream, and it allows more entities to engage directly in crypto. And so if we're interested in crypto, this is kind of something that might just have to be accepted, and ultimately might strengthen the foundations of this market that we're in. The other thing that, just talking about in the United States, inflation right now is a big topic. It's really being pumped in the mainstream media, and I think that this all kind of fits into this same story of international governments trying to get a handle on this really out of control fiat situation. And I'm just looking at the future with an open mind, and knowing that there's probably going to be some surprises, there's probably going to be some turbulence, and just keeping that in my awareness allows me to not be caught off guard. And again, each one of these could be its own little video, and maybe that's something I'll kind of dig into deeper. But I'm going on long here, which I tend to do. What's my prediction? What do I think is going to happen in this space? So as for predictions, as I was thinking about this, it dawned on me, especially as I went and looked at other charts and things that I had been marking up. Ethereum's chart, I had initially, after the Bitcoin distribution phase, I really thought that Ethereum was going to be the big story over the summer, and that we were going to see potentially some new all-time highs, or at least a Wyckoff style distribution, and that really didn't play out. I was looking at my ADA chart where I had, I was kind of looking at these different levels, and you can see here where I was talking about the Fibonacci and bouncing around here and going up, and look, it did the exact opposite. XRP, a lot of these different things that I've been looking at, I just want to acknowledge that right now in this space, there is a huge confirmation bias that we tend to predict the outcome that we want to see, and that with the exception of the Wyckoff distribution, a lot of the predictions that I've made have been kind of fitting this narrative that I want to see of a resumed markup phase, a resuming of the bull run, and that things have actually gone in the opposite direction. So I don't like making predictions because I don't have the qualifications to really stand behind them. And I think that there's other people in this space that spend a lot more time looking at a lot more data and putting together their predictions. And I've already mentioned him once, but Benjamin Cohen has done a phenomenal job of on a daily basis coming in and presenting the technicals and fundamentals of this market. And he is predicting a longer than expected market cycle that might take another year or two to really come to fruition. And it's hard for me to have anything to go against that kind of an outlook, because everything else I'm seeing is more short term. It is looking at these distribution patterns and accumulation patterns and just saying, oh, well, here's accumulation. So clearly, that was the spring. We're going to go back up. We're going to be putting in all-time highs. And I think that what I want to do on this channel, and I hope the vibe that I've been putting out, is if we are successful, we are in a place where it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we're going to have a continuation now or in a year, that we are in a mental place where we see this as a long-term investment, where we are able to maybe trade and make some money in the short term, but that long term, we're never overextending ourselves or putting ourselves in a position where short-term movements are potentially going to wipe us out. So that's my prediction here, is that the people that will do well in this space are the ones that stick around and can find some detachment. And right now I've been looking at the fear and greed index, and I see that it's an extreme fear, and I'm thinking, I don't feel extreme fear. I feel fine. I feel great. I feel that this is a great opportunity. I've actually been accumulating small amounts of Bitcoin over this whole period, because even if it goes down lower, I mean, we're at prices that a few months ago were unheard of. Buying it at $31,000, even if we drop down to 18, the fundamentals for me in Bitcoin are telling me that it's only a matter of time. And even if there's regulation, and even if there's all these other things, acquiring over time, slowly, these small amounts that I can just, keep filling my coffers and not really worrying about the price action. That's my prediction, is that if you're able to get yourself in a headspace where you're not really bound up in the fear and greed, that this is a place where you'll be really excited about when you come back and realize, oh, wow, I bought that 3-4 months ago, and oh, it's up. So that's my non-committal but honest look at the market right now, that this is a time for kind of self introspection, kind of understanding how the market works, so that next time around we're not sucked into it in the way that we just were, and educating yourself on the technical analysis, the fundamental analysis, and the awareness of the sentimental analysis as market drivers. And as my friend Pete has been saying a lot lately, a lot of people are scared and they're leaving the space, and this is a great time to be entering the space. We're not at all-time highs. We're not at this really overextended market cycle. We're actually down in the places where the smart money are coming in, and they're starting to build that cause for another leg up eventually. Could be a year from now, could be 2 years from now, but eventually, the fundamentals are there, I believe, for crypto is not going away. And the projects that are going to put in these huge all-time highs in the future are a lot of the same projects that are on sale right now. So that's my look into the crypto market. I hope that it gives you some sense of confidence that we're all okay. I know if you bought in at the top, this probably feels horrible if you overextended yourself, but just recognizing that this is a long-term investment. It doesn't matter what you're buying. It could be Amazon stock, Apple stock, anything has these cycles of markups, markdowns, markups, markdowns. So just take a deep breath, really feel some calm where you can, and ultimately, like I've been doing, find a way that you can pay less attention. If you're a day trader and that's what you do, like great, you can get so into this and that's a wonderful place if it's something that drives you. But if you're a normal person, I don't know, just put yourself in a situation where you're comfortable with what you hold, you believe in the fundamentals, and you're able to kind of let go of that baggage for a while and wait to see the sentiment and the fundamentals come back up to put in that floor beneath you. So I'm going to leave it there. I appreciate you all for checking in. One more thing that I just wanted to mention is that in this time that I've taken to really understand this YouTube channel and everything that's happening, I've been looking for ways that I can bring more of myself to this project and be really excited about it. So one of the things that I've been looking into is potentially starting a Patreon where I can be doing more content that is not necessarily for the general YouTube public, but getting a little more personal, getting a little more into the real things that I'm looking at, thinking, experiencing on a daily basis in crypto and also in the larger human happening. And I think that could be a cool place to support myself monetarily by providing what I'm sensing this community is enjoying, which is just having someone who is trying to uncomplicate some really sticky things in the world. So let me know in the comments if that's something that you'd be interested in. As you could probably tell, I'm not really money driven. I've turned off all the ads on all these videos. Uncomplication to me is something that I want to keep pure, but I think this could be a way to get me really excited about having an audience that wants what I'm putting out, and that I can kind of use that to also support the creation of that content. So let me know what you think, but I'm going to leave it there. And until next time, cheers.